QQQ question. What does it really mean to have a sound mind? Well, we'll answer that question with Scripture tonight and explain why self-control is so vitally important. Shalom, shalom, everyone. Praise Abba Father Yahweh for our being able to get together once again and worship and study and learn the truth from Yahweh. We are reading tonight the testament of Yehudah, the fourth son of Yaakov and Leah. You may have heard his name called at one time or another, Judah. That's what it is in English. That's what they call it in English. But the Hebrew, it cannot be his name, and I want to call him by the right name. It cannot be Judah because there's no J in the Hebrew language. So that's not possible. And his name is actually Yehudah, and the D is underlined. Notice that, and it has a TH sound that's carried with the D. There's still a remote D sound, but a TH added with it. Yehudah. Get it? Okay. Yehudah means let Yahweh be praised. And when Leah bore him, she was saying that she was thankful to Yahweh for a fourth son. Okay. The copy of the words of Yehudah. What things he spake to his sons before he died. They gathered themselves together, therefore, and came to him, and he said to them, Hearken, my children, to Yehudah, your father. I was the fourth son born to my father Yaakov, and Leah, my mother, named me Yehudah, saying, I give thanks to Yahweh, because he hath given me a fourth son also. I was swift in my youth, and in other words, he was fast, he could run fast, and obedient to my father in everything. And I honored my mother and my father and my mother's sister. And it came to pass, when I became a man, that my father blessed me, saying, Thou shalt be a king, prospering in all things. Children, obey your parents. This is Ephesians 6:1. Children, obey your parents in Yahweh, for this is right. Honor your father and mother, which is the first commandment with a promise, that it may go well with you, and that you may have a long life on the earth. We can ask this question. What is honoring your father and your mother? Foremost in our thoughts, in the thoughts of most people at least, would be respect and obedience. However, it doesn't end there. We must consider that being a fornicator or a drunkard does not honor your father or mother. It brings instead shame and dishonor. So, to be obedient to this commandment, we must also live a Kodesh life, Not just be good to mom and daddy and say, Mom and Daddy, you're right, and everything else is wrong, and that's not going to get you any benefits from Yahweh. But living a Kodesh life, that will honor our father and our mother on this earth. And Yahweh showed me favor, chana, in all my works, both in the field and in the house. I know that I raced a hind, and that is a kind of deer, and caught it and prepared the meat for my father, and he did eat. And the roes I used to master in the chase and overtake all that was in the plains. A roe is also a type of deer. And a mare, a wild mare, I overtook and caught it and tamed it. Let's mention this. Racehorses can easily reach speeds of 45 to 55 miles per hour, so I don't know how fast this mare was, but she was a mare that was from a greater race of horses than the horses that we have nowadays. So I imagine she was pretty swift. And he chased her down and caught her and tamed her. The fastest man today was clocked at 27 miles per hour. Yehudah caught a wild mare, which was probably running at least 40, maybe 45 to 55 miles per hour. A man can't do that nowadays, but he had the strength of his forefathers in him still. Adam lived almost 1,000 years, because his genetics were much superior to ours. They weren't thinned out. They were the original that the Father used to create man, and he created man perfect. So, as mankind began to wane, they started living less and less years. One would live 300 years, one would live 400 years, one would live 500 years, another would live only 100 years, and it kept going down until the time of our day. And people live right now mostly up to around 100 years old, close to 100, between 90 and 100. But he was chasing not only that, but he was chasing deer. And deer can also reach speeds of 40 to 50 miles per hour. So to say Yehudah was swift was an understatement. Here he says, I slew a lion and plucked a kid out of its mouth. That reminds me of David as a shepherd. And I took a bear by its paw and hurled it down the cliff, and it was crushed. I ran the wild boar, and he was taking these animals, I'm sure, that were clean animals, and preparing them and eating them with his family. But the unclean, I imagine he just buried or left open for the vultures. He outran a wild boar. This was an unclean animal. It's a pig. And seizing it as I ran, I tore it in sunder. And a leopard in Hebron leapt upon my dog, and I caught it by the tail and hurled it on the rocks, and it was broken in two. I found a wild ox feeding in the fields, and seizing it by the horns and whirling it around, stunning it, I cast it from me and slew it. And they had steak that night. Of the clean animals he slew, I'm sure he carried those home and ate with his family, like I spoke before. And when the two kings of the Canaanites came sheathed in armor against our flocks, and much people with them, single-handedly I rushed upon the king of Hazor and smote him on the greaves. Okay, let me hit undo right quick. I did something that I shouldn't have done. Okay, he rushed upon the king of Hazor and smote him on the greaves, and that's armor below the knees to protect the legs, and dragged him down. And so I slew him. And the other, the king of Tappuah, as he sat upon his horse, I slew. And so I scattered all his people. Achor the king a man of giant stature I found, hurling javelins before and behind as he sat on horseback. And I took up a stone of 60 pounds weight, and hurled it, and smote his horse, and killed it. And I fought with this other, the man, the king, for 2 hours, and I clave his shield in twain, and I chopped off his feet and killed him. And I was stripping off his breastplate. Behold, 9 of his men, his companions, began to fight with me, and I wound up my garment on my hand, and I slung stones at them, and killed 4 of them, and the rest fled. David killed Goliath with 1 stone, right in the middle of the forehead, right between the eyes. And Yaakov, my father, slew Beelzoth. Now this is Yaakov, much older than him. He slew Beelzoth, king of all the kings, a giant in strength, 12 cubits high. In other words, he was 18 feet tall. The average man is 6 feet tall. He was the average height of 3 men on top of the other. And fear fell upon them, and they ceased warring against me, against us. Therefore my father was free from anxiety in the wars when I was with my brethren. For he saw in a vision concerning me that a messenger of might followed me everywhere, that I should not be overcome. So, you might say, well, that's superhuman strength and that's superhuman speed. Well, it is. And he was given that. He was given it the same way it was given to Mosheh, to stretch his rod over the sea and the waters parted. It wasn't him doing that. It was the Ruach HaKodesh, or the Melach, the angel that was with him, giving him the ability to do that, to run that fast, and to slay his enemies and to slay animals causing danger to his flock. So, and in the south there came upon us a greater war than that in Shechem. You know, there's already been one war we've talked about in Shechem, but there's another war, and this is a greater war, and we can read about that in the book of Yashar, I think, and maybe in the book of Jubilees. And I joined in battle array with my brethren and pursued 1,000 men. Now, he's one man, he was pursuing 1,000 men, and slew of them 200 men and 4 kings. And I went up on the wall, up on the wall, and I slew 4 mighty men, and so we captured Hazor, and we took all the spoil. On the next day we departed to Araton, a city strong and walled and inaccessible, threatening us with death. But I and Gad approached on the east side of the city, and Reuven and Lewi on the west, and they were upon the wall, thinking that we were alone. They were drawn down against us, and so my brothers secretly climbed up the wall on both sides by stakes and entered the city, while the men knew it not. And we took it with the edge of the sword, and as far as those who had taken refuge in the tower, we set fire to the tower and took both it and them. And as we were departing, the men of Tappuah set upon our spoil, and delivering it up to our sons, we fought with them as far as Tappuah. And we slew them and burnt their city and took as spoil all that was in it. And when I was at the waters of Kazobah, the men of Jobel came against us to battle, and we fought with them and routed them and their allies from Shiloh. And we slew, and we did not leave them power to come in against us. And the men of Machir came upon the 5th day to seize our spoil, and we attacked them and overcame them in fierce battle. For there was a host of mighty men amongst them, and we slew them before they had gone up the ascent. And we came to their city, their women rolled upon us stones from the brow of the hill on which the city stood. And I and Shimon hid ourselves behind the town and seized upon the heights and destroyed this city also. And the next day it was told to us that the king of the city of Gaash with a mighty host was coming against us. I therefore and Dan feigned ourselves, they pretended to be Amorites, allies, and as allies went into their city, and in the depth of night our brethren came, and we opened to them the gates, and we destroyed all the men and their substance, and we took away for prey all that was theirs, and their 3 walls we cast down. And we drew near to Thamnah, where was all the substance of the hostile kings. Then being insulted by them, I was therefore wroth, and rushed against them to the summit, and they kept slinging stones and darts. And had not my brother Dan aided me, they would have slain me. We came upon them, therefore, with wrath, and they all fled, and passing by another way, they besought my father, and he made peace with them. We did them no hurt, and they became tributary to us, and we restored to them their spoil. And I built Thamnah, and my father built Pabael. I was 20 years old when this war befell, and the Canaanites feared me and my brethren. I guess so, because Yahweh was with each and every one of them, and every one of them had similar but a little different talents and ways that the angels would work with them. And we don't know exactly the whole story. We never will, but we will one day, if we even need to know it one day. And I had much cattle, and I had for a chief herdsman Aram the Adullamite. And when I went to him, I saw Parsaba, king of Adullam, and he spake unto us, and he made us a feast. And when I was heated, he gave me his daughter Bathsheba to wife. What he means by heated is that he had a bit too much to drink. His judgment had become poor, and the spirit of promiscuity crept in and took advantage of his lack of defenses. Hasatan always seeks to attack you when your defenses are down. Drunkenness lowers your defenses. Many men have sinned because of drunkenness. Women too. She bare me and Onan and Shelah, and 2 of them Yahweh smote, and Onan. For Shelah lived, and his children are you. And 18 years my father abode in peace with his brother Esau and his sons with us. After that we came from Mesopotamia, from Laban, and when we were 18 years fulfilled in the 40th year of my life, Esau, the brother of my father, came upon us with a mighty and strong people. And it doesn't get into the battle, but Yaakov, Esau's father, smote him with an arrow, and he was taken up wounded on Mount Seir, and as he went, he died at Ananiram. This battle was also recorded in the book of Jubilees. Chapter 37 gives the setting of the battle, and we will read the account of the death of Esau in chapter 38. And after that, Yehudah spake to Yaakov his father, and said to him, Bend thy bow, father, and send forth your arrows, and cast down the adversary, and slay the enemy. And may you have the power, for we shall not slay your brother, for he is such as you, for he is like you. he is like you, and he is like, we want to give him this honor. Then Yaakov bent his bow and sent forth the arrow and struck Esau, his brother, on the right breast and slew him. And we pursued after the sons of Esau. I wanted to just cover that in another scripture so that you would know it's not only one account that Yaakov slew Esau. And we pursued after the sons of Esau. Now they had a city with walls of iron and gates of brass, and we could not enter it. And we encamped around and besieged it. And when they opened not to us, in 20 days I set up a ladder in the sight of all, and with my shield upon my head I went up, sustaining the assault of stones upward of 3 talents weight. And I slew 4 of their mighty men, and Reuven and Gad slew 6 others. Then they asked from us terms of peace, and having taken counsel with our father, we received of them tributaries. And they gave us 500 cores of wheat, 500 baths of oil, 500 measures of wine, until the famine, when we went down into Egypt. And that was a lot of tributary that they were getting from them. And after these things, my son took to wife Tamar from Mesopotamia, a daughter of Aram. Now was wicked, and he was in need concerning Tamar, because she was not of the land of Canaan. And on the 3rd night a messenger of Yahudah smote him, and he had not known her, according to the evil craftiness of his mother. He had a mother that was a woman of Canaan, and she gave them bad advice, her sons, for he did not wish to have any children by her. In the days of the wedding feast I gave Onan to her in marriage, and he also in wickedness knew her not, though he spent a year with her a year. And when I threatened him, he went into her, but he spilled the seed on the ground, according to the command of his mother, and he also died through wickedness. Take note. He had sexual intercourse with her, but when the time came for fertilization of her seed, he pulled back and let his seed fall to the ground. That was the wickedness for which he was slain. It had nothing to do with him doing a personal act for his own pleasure. I will go into more detail on this topic as Yahudah bids in time to come, but that is not the focus of this study tonight. If you would like me to do a study on that, and I think you know what I'm talking about, please share it in the comments below, and I will prayerfully consider it. And I wished to give Shelah also to her, but his mother did not permit it, for she wrought evil against Tamar, because she was not of the daughters of Canaan, as she herself was. And I knew that the race of the Canaanites was wicked, but the impulse of my youth blinded my mind. When I saw her pouring out wine, owing to the intoxication of wine, I was deceived, and took her, although my father had not counseled it. And while I was away, she went and took for Shelah a wife from Canaan. And when I knew what she had done, I cursed her in the anguish of my soul. And she also died through her wickedness together with her sons. After these things, while Tamar was a widow, she heard, after 2 years, that I was going up to shear my sheep, and adorned herself in bridal array, and sat in the city Enaim by the gate, for it was a law of the Amorites, listen to this, that she who was about to marry should sit in fornication 7 days by the gate. the ancient culture of the Amorites was very different from our culture today. We expect our spouses to be chaste and only have relationships with their husbands. Let's read more. Therefore, being drunk, here he was drunk again, being drunk with wine, I did not recognize her, and her beauty deceived me through the fashion of her adorning. And I turned aside to her, and I said, let me go into you. And she said, what will you give me? And I gave her my staff and my girdle and the diadem of my kingdom in pledge. He gave 3 very important things for a pledge. And I went into her, and she conceived, and not knowing what I had done, I wished to slay her. Okay, let's interject, because you won't understand what this is if we don't stop and look at what's going on. He wished to slay her when he heard she was pregnant, and not by one of his sons. Then she gave him the pledges of the one that lay with her, and it was him. He was the fornicator. He was the one that did wrong. Yehudah was put to shame. But she privily sent my pledges and put me to shame. And when I called her, I also heard the secret words which I spoke when lying with her in my drunkenness. And I could not slay her, because it was from Yahuwah. For I said, lest haply she did it in subtlety, having received a pledge from another woman. But I came not again to her, near her, while I lived, because I had done this abomination in all Yisrael. He slept with his son's wife, which is an abomination. Take note, that is what alcohol can do to you if you don't have self-control. In order to have self-control, you can't drink more than the limit that would make you fall into the drunken category. And most people know those limits, but some don't. And some can't drink at all, because when they drink 1, they're going to follow it with 2, and beer or drink or whatever. And then that is followed by 3, all the way to 10 until they're drunk, because some people cannot stop it. So to those people, you have to pray to Yahweh and avoid wine or alcohol at all. Let's look at the fruit of the Spirit. Galatians 5:22, but the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Against such things there is no law. We can easily see that alcohol lowered his guard, and he lost control. At this point, the spirit of lust crept in and took advantage of his lack of defense and attacked his self-control and defeated him spiritually and physically. Let's continue. Moreover, they who were in the city said there was no harlot in the gate, because she came from another place and sat for a while in the gate. And I thought that no one knew that I had gone into her. And after this we came into Egypt, Mitzrayim, to Yosef, because of the famine. And I was 46 years old, and 73 years I lived in Mitzrayim, in Egypt. And now I command you, my children, hearken unto Yehudah, your father, and keep my sayings, to perform all the ordinances of Yahweh, and to obey the commands of Elohim. And we walk not after your lust, for in the imaginations of your thoughts and the haughtiness of your heart, and revel not in the deeds and in the strength of your youth, for this also is evil in the eyes of Yahweh. Since I also reveled that in wars no comely woman's face ever enticed me. And he said, I reproved Reuven, my brother concerning Bilhah, the wife of my father. The spirits of jealousy and of fornication arrayed themselves against me until I lay with Bathsheba, the Canaanite, and Tamar, who was espoused to my sons. For I said to my father-in-law, I will take counsel with my father, and I will take your daughter. And he was unwilling. But he showed me a boundless store of gold in his daughter's behalf, for he was a king. So he was tempted also by the riches. So he didn't consult his father, because he says, hey, I've got all these riches here. And Yehudah looked at all those riches and said, well, it'll be okay. That's how we are sometimes. We cave in because of something that we want. And he adorned her with gold and pearls and caused her to pour out wine for us at the feast with the beauty of women. And the wine turned aside my eyes, and pleasure blinded my heart, and I became enamored through wine. Maybe if you don't know what enamored is, it's got the word amor, which is it's a word that means love. In Spanish particularly. So enamored means fell in love. But he fell in love through wine. Okay? So when the wine was gone, the love was different. And I lay with her and transgressed the commandment of Yahweh and the commandment of my fathers, and I took her to wife. And Yahweh rewarded me according to the imagination of my heart, inasmuch as I had no joy in her children. And now, my children, I say unto you, be not drunk with wine, for wine turns the mind away from the truth and inspires the passion of lust, and leads eyes into error. For the spirit of fornication has wine as a minister, to give pleasure to the mind. For these two also take away the mind of a man. For if a man drink wine to drunkenness, it disturbs the mind with filthy thoughts leading to fornication, and heats the body to carnal union. And if the occasion of lust be present, he worse commits the sin and is not ashamed. Such is the inebriated man, my children. For he who is drunken references no man. For lo, it made me also to err, so that I was not ashamed of the multitude in the city, in that before the eyes of all I turned aside unto Tamar. And I wrote a great sin, and I uncovered the covering of my son's shame. After I had drunk wine, I reverenced not the commandment of Elohim. And I took a woman of Canaan to wife, for much discretion needs a man who drinks wine, my children. And herein is discretion in drinking wine by a man. A man may drink so long as he preserves modesty. But if he goes beyond this limit, the spirit of deceit attacks his mind, and it marks the drunkard to talk filthily. It makes the drunkard talk filthily, and to transgress, and to not be ashamed, but even to revel in his shame, and to account himself honorable. What is this? To account himself honorable when he's committed a sin, a grievous sin? A man just drinks past his ability to continue to preserve modesty. He's attacked with his defenses weakened. The spirit of deceit attacks his mind. Scripture states in the King James Bible, 2 Timothy 1 verse 7, for Elohim has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. And it says it different in the English Standard Version, but not really that much difference. It's very close to exactly the same. Let's read it. 2 Timothy 1 verse 7. For Elohim gave us a spirit not of fear, but of power and love and self-control. A sound mind and self-control are the same, because a sound mind is going to control your body. A sound mind is a mind that is not drunken. If there's drunkenness occurring, the sound mind part leaves, and that's what protects us from falling into fornication. Okay. When your defenses are weakened, self-control and a sound mind are shot right out of the window. And if there is occasion, sexual immorality will take its course. So be careful if you choose to drink wine. There are many benefits of wine if it is used in the right way. That's a scriptural. Here are a few examples, and I'll point these out. But it doesn't make it good, but it's not bad either. Wine of itself is not bad. And Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought forth bread and wine, and he was the priest of the Most High Elohim. If wine was a bad thing, why would Melchizedek bring them forth to share with Abraham? Numbers 15:5 says, "And the fourth part of an hin of wine for a drink offering shall you prepare with the burnt offering or sacrifice for one lamb." If wine was bad, why would Yahweh use it as part of the sacrifice? So some groups insist that it wasn't wine, but rather grape juice. That's not true. Man did not know how to keep grape juice from spoiling until the 17th century. The only way to preserve it was to let it ferment. And it became wine, and they could keep it for a long time. You could keep it for years. Yochanan 2:1-11 tells the story of how Yeshua turned water into wine at a wedding. Read the story, and it will reveal that it was wine with alcohol content, if you look at it objectively. Why did Shaul tell Timothy this? "Drink no longer water, but use a little wine for your stomach's sake and your often infirmities." Why would Shaul tell Timotheus to drink wine? Why? Because wine drank in moderation is healthy, and doctors agree with that. I agree with that. But don't drink a gallon. You don't need to be that healthy. Ephesians 5:18 says, "And be not drunk with wine wherein there is excess, but be filled with the Spirit." Yes, be filled with the Spirit and not wine. But it has this word excess. Be not drunk with wine wherein there is excess. Anything in excess is bad for you. Too much food, too much sugar, too much soda, too much starch, too much pain reliever. The list goes on and on. So don't point your finger at somebody drinking a glass of wine while you are on your third plate at the buffet. Okay? You're sinning just as much as they are. Only what they're doing is it removes a sound mind and causes them to fall and stumble into deeper sins. Finally, make sure you keep your sound mind with self-control. That's vital and answers the QQQ question at the beginning of our video. He that commits fornication is not aware when he suffers loss, and is not ashamed because his senses are down, as sound control, sound mind and self-control are gone, so he's not aware that he suffered any loss. For even though a man, being a king and commit fornication, he is stripped. I'm trying to find where it was. He is stripped of his kingship by becoming the slave of fornication, as I myself also suffered. For I gave my staff, that is the stay of my tribe, and my girdle, that is my power, and my diadem, that is the esteem of my kingdom. And indeed I repented of all these things. Wine and flesh I ate not until my old age. He repented, and he fasted wine and flesh until he was very old. Nor did I behold any joy. And the messenger of Elohim showed me that forever do women bear rule over king and beggar alike. And from the king they take away his esteem, and from the valiant man his might, and from the beggar even that little which is the stay of his poverty. Observe therefore, my children, the right limits in wine, for there are in it 4 evil spirits: lust, hot desire, profligacy of filthy lucre, that's sinful gain with filthy money. And if you drink wine in gladness, be modest in the fear of Elohim, for if in your gladness the fear of Elohim departs, then drunkenness arises, and shamelessness steals in. But if you would live soberly, do not touch wine at all, lest you sin in the words of outrage, and in fightings, and in slanders, and transgressions of the commandments of Elohim, and you perish before your time. Moreover, wine reveals the mysteries of Elohim and men, even as I also revealed the commandments of Elohim and the mysteries of Yaakov my father to the Canaanitish woman Bathsheba, which Elohim bade me not to reveal. And wine is a cause of both war and confusion. So, I just want to make mention, as far as that is concerned, he probably started talking to Bathsheba about who Yahweh Elohim was, that he's the one true Elohim of that created all things. And she may not have been fit to even hear of it, and would have not believed it anyway. So that's why Elohim bade him not to reveal who Yahweh was and his commands. And now I command you, my children, not to love money, nor to gaze upon the beauty of women, because for the sake of money and beauty I was led astray to Bathsheba the Canaanite. For I know that because of these 2 things shall my race fall into wickedness, for even wise men among my sons shall they mar, and shall cause the kingdom of Yehudah to be diminished, which Yahweh gave me because of my obedience to my father. For I never caused grief to Yaakov, my father. For all things whatsoever he commanded, I did. And Yitzchak, the father of my father, blessed me to be king in Yisrael, and Yaakov further blessed me in like manner, and I know that from me shall the kingdom be established. And I know what evils you will do in the last days. Beware therefore, my children, of fornication and the love of money, and hearken to Yehudah your father. For these things withdraw from without the law, from the law of Elohim, and blind the inclination of the soul, and teach arrogance, and suffer not a man to have compassion upon his neighbor. They rob his soul of all goodness, and oppress him with toils and troubles, and drive away sleep from him, and devour his flesh, and he hinders the sacrifices of Elohim, and he remembers not the blessing of Elohim. He hearkens not to a prophet when he speaks, and he resents the words of Elohimliness, for he is a slave to 2 contrary passions, and cannot obey Elohim, because they have blinded his soul, and he walks in the day as in the night. You know, you walk by the light of day, and that would be indicating the the laws of Elohim. But if you walk by the dark of the night, that would indicate the ways of Hashatan. My children, the love of money leads to idolatry, because when led astray through money, men name as gods those who are not gods, and it causes him who hath it to fall into madness. For the sake of money, I lost my children, and had not my repentance and my humiliation, and had not the prayers of my father been accepted, I should have died childless. But the Elohim of my fathers had mercy on me, because I did it in ignorance, and the prince of deceit blinded me, and I sinned as a man and as flesh, being corrupted through sins, and I learned my own weakness, while thinking myself to be invincible. Oh, you see how it removed the sound judgment of his mind. He just learned how weak he was in the area of drinking and in the area of fornication or lust. Know therefore, my children, that two spirits wait upon a man, the spirit of truth and the spirit of deceit. They're both right there. They're hitting you on both sides. And in the midst is the spirit of understanding of the mind, to which it belongs to turn whithersoever it will. And the works of truth and the works of deceit are written upon the hearts of men, and each one of them Yahweh knows. Now you can hide your intentions from man sometimes. Sometimes you can't even hide it from men. But you can never hide your intentions from Yahweh, because he knows the very impressions that are on your heart. And there is no time at which the works of men can be hid, for on the heart itself have they been written down before Yahweh. And the Spirit of truth testifies all things and accuses all, and the sinner is burnt up by his own heart, and he cannot raise his face to the judge. And now, my children, I command you, love Lewi, that you may abide, and exalt not yourselves against him, lest you be utterly destroyed. For to me Yahweh gave the kingdom, and to him the priesthood, and he set the kingdom beneath the priesthood. To me he gave the things upon the earth, to him all the things in the heavens. As the heaven is higher than the earth, so is the priesthood of Elohim higher than the earthly kingdom, unless it falls away through sin from Yahweh and is dominated by the earthly kingdom. For the messenger of Yahweh said to me, Yahweh chose him rather than you to draw near to him, and to eat of his table, and to offer to him the firstfruits of the choice things of the sons of Israel. But you shall be a king of Yaakov, and you shall be among them as the sea. For as on the sea, just and unjust are tossed about, some taken into captivity, while some are enriched. So also shall every race of men be in you. Some shall be impoverished, being taken captive, and others grow rich by plundering the possessions of others. For the kings shall be as sea monsters, they shall swallow men like fishes. The sons and daughters of free men shall they enslave. Houses, lands, flocks, money shall they plunder, and with the flesh of many shall they wrongfully feed the ravens and the cranes, and they shall advance in evil and covetousness uplifted. And there shall be false prophets like tempests, and they shall persecute all righteous men. And I, Yahweh, bring upon them divisions, one against another, and there shall be continual wars in Israel, and among men of another race shall my kingdom be brought to an end, until the salvation of Israel shall come, until the appearing of the Elohim of righteousness, that Yaakov and all the Gentiles may rest in peace. And he shall guard the might of my kingdom forever. For Yahweh swore to me with an oath that he would not destroy the kingdom from my seed forever, stating that Yeshua would be the last of his seed that would be a king. And he will be a king, and that is coming back. He is king. He's the King of Kings. And he's coming back to reign on this earth. Now I have much grief, my children, because of your lewdness and witchcrafts and idolatries, which shall practice against the kingdom, which you shall practice against the kingdom, following them that have familiar spirits, diviners, and demons of error. You shall make your daughters singing girls and harlots, and you shall mingle in the abominations of the Gentiles, for which things' sake Yahweh shall bring upon you famine and pestilence, death, and the sword, beleaguering by enemies, and revelings of friends, the slaughter of children, the rape of wives, the plundering of possessions, the burning of the temple of Elohim, the laying waste of the land, the enslavement of yourselves among the Gentiles. And they shall make some of you eunuchs for their wives, until Yahweh visit you, when with a perfect heart you repent and walk in all his commandments, and he bring you up from captivity among the Gentiles. And after these things shall a star arise from you in Yaakov in peace, and a man shall arise from my seed, like the Son of Righteousness, walking with the sons of men in meekness and righteousness. And no sin shall be found in him, and the heavens shall be opened unto him, to pour out the Spirit, even the blessing of the Kodesh Father. And he shall pour out of the Spirit of grace, Chana, upon you, and you shall be unto him sons in truth, and you shall walk in his commandments, first and last. This branch of Elohim Most High, and this fountain giving life unto all, then shall the scepter of my kingdom shine forth, and from your root shall arise a stem, and from it shall grow a rod of righteousness to the Gentiles, to judge and to save all that call upon Yahweh. This stem, of course, is Yeshua, Messiah. And after these things shall Abraham and Yitzchak and Yaakov arise unto life, and I and my brethren shall be chiefs of the tribes of Israel, Levi first, the second Yosef, third Benjamin, fourth, Shimon, fifth, Issachar, sixth, and so all in order. And Yahweh bless Levi and the messenger of the presence, me, the powers of esteem, Shimon the heaven, Reuven the earth, Issachar the sea, the earth is Issachar, the sea, Zebulun, the mountains, Yosef, the tabernacle, Benjamin, the luminaries, Dan, Eden, Naphtali, the sun, God, the moon, Asher. And ye shall be the people of Yahweh, and have one tongue. And there shall be also there no deceit of Beliar, for he shall be cast into the fire forever. And they who have died in grief shall arise in joy. They who were poor for Yahweh's sake shall be made rich, and they who are put to death for Yahweh's sake shall awake to life. And the hearts of Yaakov shall run in joyfulness. Now this is not the heart like the heart, it's hearts like a deer. You shall run, Yaakov shall run in joyfulness, and the eagles of Israel shall fly in gladness, and all the people shall esteem Yahweh forever. Observe therefore, my children, all the law of Yahweh, for there is hope for all them who hold fast unto his ways. And he said unto them, Behold, I die before your eyes this day, 119 years old. Let no one bury me in costly array, nor tear open my bowels. For this shall they her kings do, and carry me up to Hebron with you. And Yehudah, when he had said these things, fell asleep, and his sons did according to all whatsoever he commanded them, and they buried him in Hebron with his fathers. Oh, well, this has been exciting, actually, and a little difficult to read, but we got through it, and hope and pray that each of you will give an understanding of the scriptures, well, the like scriptures that we read tonight, and hope and pray that they were able to minister to your heart and to help you to see things in your own lives that you need to change, and some things maybe you need to take a hold of and seek Yahweh about. Anyway, next step is, take it away, Alan.
I sing to Yahweh, for he is highly exalted. The horse and its rider he has thrown into the sea. Yah is my strength and song, and he has become my deliverance. He is my El, and I praise him, Elohim of my father, and I exalt him. Yahweh is a man of battle, Yahweh is his name. He has cast Pharaoh's chariots and his army into the sea, and his chosen officers are drowned in the sea of reeds. The depths covered them, they went down to the bottom like a stone. Your right hand, O Yahuwah, has become great in power. Your right hand, O Yahuwah, has crushed the enemy. And in the greatness of your excellence, you pulled down those who rose up against you. You sent forth your wrath, it consumed them like stubble. And with the wind of your nostrils, the waters were heaped up. The floods stood like a wall, the depths became stiff in the heart of the sea. The enemy said, I pursue, I overtake, I divide the spoil, my being is satisfied on them. I draw out my sword, my hand destroys them. You blew with your wind, the sea covered them, they sank like lead in the mighty waters. Who is like you, O Yahweh, among the mighty ones? Who is like you, great in Kodeshah, awesome in praises, working wonders? You stretched out your right hand, the earth swallowed them. In your kindness, you led the people whom you have redeemed. In your strength, you guided them to your Kodesh dwelling. heard, they trembled. Anguish gripped the inhabitants of Pelasheth. Then the chiefs of Edom were troubled, the mighty men of Moab. Trembling grips them, all the inhabitants of Canaan melted. Fear and dread fell on them by the greatness of your arm. They are as silent as a stone. Until your people pass over, O Yahuwah. Until the people whom you have bought pass over. You bring them in and plant them in the mountain of your inheritance, in the place, O Yahuwah, which you have made for your own dwelling, the Mikdash, O Yahuwah, which your hands have prepared. Yahuwah reigns forever and ever.